Women of Northridge, thank you for all that reached out, and we're concerned about the tree that fell on our house. We're all fine. We're all here and we're grateful. It could have been so much worse, and we know that God has spared us a tragedy. So thank you for reaching out. Thank you for your love. It means so much. I had planned to talk about something different today, but I thought I would just let you in on my thought process as we kind of interpret what's going on around us, because sometimes we can get so caught up in what we're thinking that it takes us away from reality. And I think a book that we can go to in those moments is the book of Psalms, because David and the other authors express their hearts honestly and openly and process through things in the presence of God. And so there are at least 3 times in the book of Psalms where David says, if I say this, or if I were to say, and then he talks about what would happen, or the reality that he'd be denying. And so let's talk about 3 different Psalms: Psalm 73, Psalm 94, and Psalm 139. And let's find out what thoughts are going on in the author that are similar to the thoughts that we have when trees fall on our house or we might catch the coronavirus. The first one is, it's not fair. It's not fair. I don't deserve this. This isn't what I had expected or wanted from life. And we can often say, it's not fair. In chapter 73, he's looking at the lives of everybody around him and going, how come they can get off so easily? And here I am trying to do what's right, trying to live for God. It's not fair that their lives seem so easy. They completely disregard God. It's not fair. And until he draws close to God in the middle of those thoughts, he's really bitter. Then we see as he draws close to God, he describes God being with him, holding him, guiding him, receiving him, and being his portion. It's like God is saying, I am all yours. You wanted something out of life that you weren't getting, but I am all yours. And then in verse 25, the author says, there is no one I desire in heaven or in earth besides you. He's talking about God. And so when we are finding ourselves saying it's not fair, Psalm 73, God's response to that is, I am all yours. You're looking for something that you're not getting because you're not looking for the right thing. I'm yours. The next psalm is Psalm 94. Sometimes we can find ourselves saying, like this author in verse 18, my foot had almost slipped, or I am sinking. We might say it's hopeless. I'm sunk. I'm going down. It's over. And yet, what we see God saying is that I noticed. He's in the middle of being at the end of his rope with no one else to come to his aid. And it looks like God is not seeing or hearing or understanding. But God's response is, I noticed. I noticed what's going on. You called it hopeless, but I noticed. And then he describes God as his defense, his rock, his help, and that he has not forsaken him. So when it's hopeless and we have this thought in our minds, it's hopeless. God notices. The last Psalm 139, that's a pretty common or more popular psalm. And we talk about it in terms of God's awareness of our lives, his actual formation of our lives, his presence in our life. And in verses 11 and 12, the author says, if I had said the darkness will consume me or cover me, we might say to ourselves, it is too dark. It's too dark, especially at nighttime. It is too dark, and I don't think God is seeing what's going on. I better not fall asleep, because if I fall asleep, I lose complete control. And it's an interesting look at the life of a person as they're being formed. It's like he goes back to when we were embryos, and he describes this process of God's creating us. And I don't think there's another time in life where we're the most dependent as when we were an embryo. And I would ask the question of myself, how did that go, Cherith? How did it go when you were knitting yourself together? How did it go when you had all that control and deciding what you ate and what you drank and how you slept and how much space you had? I don't even remember. I'm not even conscious of that going on. And God says, I knit you together in the state of your most dependence. I was the one doing all the work. And so when we don't want to release control, it's like God points us back to when we were embryos and says, hold on, I knit you together. I was there in the moments you don't even remember. So let it go. I am in control. When I'm telling myself it's too dark, I go to the point in time when I was the most dependent, the most reliant on God. It was the darkest, physical, most buried, most intimate time. And God was the one knitting me together. So I'm not in control. I can release that control even when it's dark. And it might even mean I need to say, I will fall asleep. I will decide that God has seen me in my deepest, darkest moments when I didn't even know who I was. He's in control. So those 3 Psalms have helped as I process through life circumstances in pinpointing those, if I say this, what is God saying? That he said, she said, I'm not really thinking truth in those moments. I have to go back to what has God said, not what am I saying about life. So I hope those Psalms are helpful. I hope you can take a longer look at them and pinpoint when you've said those things. And I'd love to hear from you. Love you guys. Bye.